The excavation drill struck something that shouldn't have been there. 2 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, where only compacted snow and ancient rock should exist, Dr. Keiko Nakamura's sensors screamed warnings of an impossibly dense metallic structure. She pulled off her thermal mask, frost-covered eyebrows furrowing as she studied the readouts in the cramped research station. After 3 decades of glaciological research, she'd never seen anything like this. "Yevgeny, come look at this," she called to her Russian colleague, Dr. Yevgeny Volkov, who was nursing his 5th cup of coffee that morning. The bearded scientist shuffled over, still wrapped in his oversized parka despite the station's heating system working overtime. The magnetometer readings showed a massive object, roughly 300 meters in length, composed of materials that defied conventional classification. Its magnetic signature was unlike any natural formation or human-made structure. More troubling still, the ice core samples dated the surrounding layers to over 100,000 years old. Within hours, their small research outpost transformed into a hive of urgent activity. Satellite uplinks buzzed with encrypted data streams to every major scientific institution on Earth. The discovery was too significant to keep quiet, too momentous to handle with their limited resources. By evening, helicopters were already thundering across the frozen wasteland, carrying the first wave of experts. Dr. Amara Okonkwo arrived with the initial response team, her expertise in xenoarchaeology making her invaluable despite the field being largely theoretical until now. The Nigerian scientist had spent her career studying potential signs of extraterrestrial visitation, enduring ridicule from mainstream academia. Now, bundled against the Antarctic cold, she felt vindication mixing with trepidation as she examined Nakamura's data. "The geometry is all wrong," Okonkwo muttered, tracing the object's outline on her tablet. "These angles, these proportions, they don't follow any design philosophy I've ever encountered. It's like whoever built this had a completely different understanding of physics." The drilling operation expanded rapidly. Engineers worked around the clock, melting precise shafts through the ancient ice while being careful not to damage whatever lay beneath. Environmental scientist Dr. Thabo Molefe supervised the delicate operation, ensuring they preserved the integrity of both the ice sheet and their mysterious find. The South African had protested the aggressive timeline initially, but even he couldn't deny the importance of reaching the object quickly. On the 7th day, the drill broke through into a hollow chamber. The video feed showed a vast cavern carved from ice, and within it, something that made everyone in the command center stop breathing. The Black Ship, as they would come to call it, stood impossibly preserved in the frozen cathedral. Its hull absorbed light like a hungry void, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and writhe when viewed directly. Commander Isabella Rodriguez, the military liaison assigned to the project, was the first to speak. "Jesus Christ," she whispered, her usual professional composure cracking. "That's not from Earth." The ship defied easy description. Its form was simultaneously organic and mechanical, with sweeping curves that flowed into sharp, crystalline edges. Strange protrusions that might have been weapons or sensors dotted its surface, and what appeared to be a viewing port near the front glowed with a faint, pulsing light despite the millennia of dormancy. Dr. Przemysław Kowalski, the team's lead physicist, ran calculations on his laptop with trembling fingers. The Polish scientist had seen impossible things in quantum experiments, but this was different. This was tangible proof that humanity wasn't alone, hadn't been alone, and that visitors had come calling when humans were still learning to control fire. "The metallurgy alone will revolutionize materials science," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "But look at these energy readings. Even dormant, it's putting out signatures I can't begin to explain. It's like it's existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously." As word spread through secure channels, the world's most brilliant minds began converging on Antarctica. Engineers, physicists, linguists, computer scientists, and specialists from fields that barely had names yet. The discovery was too momentous for any one nation to claim, and surprisingly, international cooperation emerged almost spontaneously. The Black Ship had a way of making earthly conflicts seem petty. Dr. Chen Wei arrived from Beijing with a team of quantum computing experts, while Dr. Rashida Al-Rashid brought her pioneering work in xenolinguistics from Cairo. The Brazilian engineer Joaquim Santos coordinated the construction of a proper research facility around the ship, while Indian mathematician Dr. Priya Sharma began working on decoding the mathematical principles behind the vessel's construction. But it was a young prodigy named Dr. Zara Oduya who made the first breakthrough. The Kenyan computer scientist, barely 25, noticed something others had missed. The patterns on the ship's hull weren't just decorative. They were data, information encoded in a visual language that predated any human writing system by eons. "It's talking to us," she announced during a late-night meeting, exhaustion and excitement warring in her voice. "The ship, it's been broadcasting a message this entire time. We just didn't know how to listen." As the first phase of humanity's greatest challenge began, none of them could have imagined just how profoundly the black ship would change everything they thought they knew about the universe, and humanity's place within it. The mathematics were beautiful and terrifying. Dr. Priya Sharma stared at the holographic projections floating above her workstation, equations that seemed to bend reality itself. The Indian mathematician had decoded the first layer of the ship's hull patterns with Zara Oduya's help, revealing numerical concepts that shouldn't exist. These weren't just advanced calculations, they were fundamentally different ways of understanding the universe. "Look at this," Sharma called to Dr. Kowalski, pointing at a particularly elegant series of symbols. "They're using base 12 mathematics, but with imaginary number sets that have physical manifestations. It's like they could calculate the square root of -1 and then build something with it." Kowalski rubbed his bloodshot eyes, the excitement of discovery warring with 3 days without proper sleep. The research facility had grown around the black ship like a technological cocoon, prefabricated modules connecting in a maze of corridors and laboratories. The constant hum of machinery mixed with the howling Antarctic wind outside, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that matched their impossible task. In the xenolinguistics lab, Dr. Rashida Al-Rashid made her own breakthrough. The Egyptian scholar had been analyzing the visual patterns with an AI system designed for decoding unknown languages. What she found challenged every assumption about communication itself. "The language is multidimensional," she explained to the gathered team, her voice filled with awe. "Each symbol carries meaning across 7 different conceptual axes simultaneously. Color, position, rotation, frequency of appearance, proximity to other symbols, temporal variation, and something I can only describe as conceptual resonance. It's like trying to read a book that's also a symphony, a painting, and a dance all at once." The first successful translation came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chen Wei's quantum computer, cooled to near absolute zero in a specially constructed clean room, finally cracked what appeared to be a user manual of sorts. The Chinese scientist's hands shook as he read the output. "Navigation protocols," he announced. "This section describes how to operate the ship's faster-than-light drive system. But the physics, they're using principles we haven't even theorized yet. They're manipulating spacetime not by warping it, but by convincing it that distances are different than they appear." Commander Rodriguez coordinated security as more discoveries poured in. The military woman had initially approached the project with skepticism, but the implications were staggering. If humanity could understand and replicate even a fraction of this technology, it would change the balance of power on Earth forever. More importantly, it would open the stars to human exploration. The breakthrough in accessing the ship's interior came from Joaquim Santos and his engineering team. The Brazilian had noticed that certain harmonic frequencies caused the hull patterns to shift and realign. Working with acoustics expert Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Japan, they developed a sonic key that finally opened what they believed to be an access hatch. The first humans to enter the black ship were Nakamura, Okonkwo, and Rodriguez, suited in protective gear that seemed laughably primitive compared to their surroundings. The interior defied conventional design logic. Corridors flowed like frozen rivers, walls curved in non-Euclidean patterns that made the eye water, and a soft bioluminescent glow emanated from surfaces that felt simultaneously organic and artificial. It's like being inside a living thing, Nakamura whispered, her breath fogging in the suit's helmet. Despite the ship's age, the atmosphere inside remained stable, maintained by systems they couldn't begin to understand. The command center, when they found it, took their breath away. Seats designed for beings roughly humanoid but distinctly not human-faced panels that projected information directly into the viewer's visual cortex. Dr. Okonkwo cautiously settled into one of the chairs, gasping as streams of data flooded her consciousness. "I can see it," she said, tears streaming down her face. Their history, their purpose. They called themselves the Traversers. They weren't from our galaxy, weren't even from our dimensional plane originally. They were explorers, scientists, seeking to understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. The data download was overwhelming. The Traversers had visited Earth during the last ice age, studying the primitive life forms with the detached interest of researchers. But something had gone wrong. The ship's logs, once Zara Oduya decoded them, told a story of cascade failure in their dimensional drives, stranding them far from home. They tried to repair the damage, Oduya reported, her usually cheerful demeanor subdued. But Earth's resources were incompatible with their technology. They sent distress signals across dimensional barriers, but no help came. In the end, they put the ship into stasis and they walked into the ice. The revelation hit the team hard. These impossibly advanced beings had died alone on a primitive world, their technology intact but useless without the specific materials and energy sources of their home dimension. It was a sobering reminder that advancement didn't guarantee survival. But the Traversers had left something behind besides their ship. Deep in the computer core, Dr. Chen Wei discovered what could only be described as a gift. A complete database of their scientific knowledge, simplified and translated into mathematical concepts that humans could eventually understand. It was as if they knew someone would find them someday and wanted their legacy to continue. They documented everything, Chen said, voice hushed with reverence. Propulsion, energy generation, medical technology, even their philosophy and art. It's like they're teaching us, reaching across 100,000 years to share what they knew. As the second week of investigation ended, the magnitude of their task became clear. Decoding the black ship wasn't just about understanding alien technology. It was about humanity taking its first steps toward joining a larger cosmic community, one where death and distance were no barriers to the eternal quest for knowledge. Dr. Thabo Molefe stood before the assembled United Nations Security Council, the weight of the world literally on his shoulders. The South African environmental scientist had been chosen to present the findings not for his initial discovery work, but for his ability to convey complex ideas with clarity and passion. Behind him, a holographic display showed the black ship in all its dark majesty. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his deep voice carrying across the hushed assembly, "what we've discovered in Antarctica isn't just a technological artifact. It's a library, a gift, and perhaps humanity's greatest test." The political implications had struck like a tsunami. Within days of the discovery going public, stock markets convulsed, religions grappled with theological implications, and governments scrambled to position themselves for the new reality. The team in Antarctica found themselves at the center of a geopolitical storm. Back at the research site, Dr. Kowalski made a disturbing discovery. The power source of the black ship wasn't just advanced, it was potentially catastrophic. The Polish physicist's face was grave as he explained to the gathered scientists. "It's a contained dimensional rift," he said, pointing to readings that shouldn't be possible. "They're drawing energy from the quantum foam itself, the fundamental substrate of reality. But there's decay in the containment system. If it fails completely, it could tear a hole in spacetime itself." The race against time added urgency to their efforts. Engineers worked frantically to understand the containment protocols while physicists tried to calculate how long they had. Dr. Sharma's mathematical model suggested anywhere from 6 months to 6 years before critical failure. "We need to either stabilize it or shut it down," Commander Rodriguez stated flatly during an emergency meeting. And we need to do it without destroying the ship or Antarctica in the process. The pressure took its toll. Dr. Al-Rashid collapsed from exhaustion after a 70-hour translation marathon. Yevgeny Volkov's caffeine intake reached dangerous levels as he coordinated ice stability measurements around the ship. Even the seemingly inexhaustible Zara Oduya began showing signs of strain. It was during this crisis that humanity's greatest strength emerged, cooperation born of necessity. Dr. Chen Wei's team from Beijing worked seamlessly with American engineers, sharing quantum computing resources without regard for national security. Indian and Pakistani scientists collaborated on dimensional mathematics. Israeli and Iranian physicists argued passionately about containment theories, their debates fueled by mutual respect rather than antagonism. The breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. Joaquim Santos, working with a young Norwegian engineer named Astrid Lindqvist, discovered that the ship's hull could absorb and redistribute energy. By reconfiguring the acoustic resonance patterns, they could potentially create a feedback loop that would stabilize the power core. "It's like the ship wants to heal itself," Lindqvist explained, her pale blue eyes bright with discovery. "We just need to remind it how." While the engineers worked on stabilization, the linguists and computer scientists dove deeper into the traverser's records. What they found was both inspiring and heartbreaking. The aliens had been a peaceful species, driven by curiosity rather than conquest. Their dimensional travel technology had allowed them to explore not just different places, but different versions of reality itself. Dr. Okonkwo, recovered from her initial data download, spent days in the command chair, absorbing history and philosophy from a civilization millions of years older than humanity. What she learned changed her fundamentally. "They had wars once," she told the team during a quiet moment. "Conflicts that destroyed entire dimensional planes. But they evolved past it, choosing exploration over exploitation. They became gardeners of reality, nurturing life wherever they found it." The traverser's medical technology proved particularly fascinating. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a Spanish biochemist who'd arrived with the third wave of researchers, discovered healing devices that worked by harmonizing biological systems rather than treating symptoms. "They understood life as a form of organized energy," Vasquez explained. "Disease and aging were just disharmony to them, correctable by restoring the proper frequencies. We could extend human lifespan by centuries if we can adapt this technology." But with each discovery came ethical dilemmas. Should such powerful technology be shared freely? Could humanity handle the responsibility? The debates raged through the night shifts, scientists becoming philosophers as they grappled with the implications. Dr. Nakamura, as the original discoverer, found herself in an unofficial leadership role. The Japanese scientists' measured approach and deep wisdom helped navigate conflicts between team members and nations alike. She insisted that all discoveries be documented and shared through a UN-administered database, preventing any one country from monopolizing the knowledge. "The traversers trusted us with this," she reminded them during one heated debate. "We dishonor their memory if we use it for anything less than the betterment of all humanity." As the fourth week passed, the stabilization project showed promise. The power core's decay had slowed, buying them precious time. But a new mystery emerged from the deepest part of the ship's computer core. Zara Oduya found encrypted files that resisted all attempts at decoding, protected by mathematical locks of staggering complexity. "Whatever's in there," she said, frustration evident in her voice, "the traversers really didn't want it accessed easily. It's like they were protecting us from something." The weight of knowledge pressed down on them all. They'd touched the infinite and found it both wonderful and terrible. As they worked to unlock the black ship's secrets, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were children playing with forces beyond their comprehension, hoping wisdom would come before catastrophe. The nightmare began at 3:47 a.m. Antarctic time. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was monitoring the acoustic stabilization system when the harmonics suddenly shifted. The Japanese acoustics expert watched in horror as wave patterns that had been steady for days began to oscillate wildly. She slammed the emergency alert, sending klaxons wailing through the facility. "Everyone to emergency stations." Commander Rodriguez's voice boomed over the intercom. "This is not a drill. Dimensional instability detected in Sector 7. The black ship was fighting back. Not consciously, but as an immune system might react to foreign bodies. The human modifications to stabilize the power core had triggered dormant defense mechanisms. Reality itself began to warp around the vessel." Dr. Kowalski arrived at the monitoring station, still in his pajamas, and immediately paled at the readings. "The dimensional barriers are thinning," he said, fingers flying across his tablet. "We're getting bleed-through from adjacent realities." The first manifestation appeared in Corridor C. Security cameras captured the impossible, a section of hallway that existed in multiple states simultaneously. In one layer, the corridor was pristine. In another, it was rusted and ancient. In a third, it didn't exist at all, revealing the ice beyond. Personnel fleeing the area reported feeling like they were moving through thick liquid, time stretching and compressing around them. "Pull everyone back from the ship," Rodriguez ordered, but it was already too late for some. Dr. Astrid Lindqvist and 2 engineers were trapped in the ship's engineering section when reality fractured around them. Through the monitoring systems, the command center watched in helpless horror as the 3 figures flickered between versions of themselves, young, old, existing, not existing. Lindqvist's scream echoed across multiple dimensions before cutting off abruptly. "We have to shut it down," Dr. Molev urged, but Chen Wei shook his head frantically. "If we emergency shut down now, the power core could implode. We'd lose not just the ship but potentially create a permanent dimensional rift. We need to fix this the right way." Zara Oduya worked desperately on the encrypted files, believing they held the key. The young computer scientist had isolated herself in the quantum computing lab, surrounded by screens displaying the alien code. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she pushed the systems beyond their limits. Come on," she muttered, applying every decryption technique she knew and several she invented on the spot. "What were you trying to tell us?" In the medical bay, Dr. Vasquez treated the casualties of dimensional exposure. Personnel caught in the reality fluctuations suffered from temporal displacement syndrome. Their bodies existed in the present, but parts of their consciousness were scattered across multiple time streams. One engineer aged 30 years in 30 seconds before reverting to normal, the experience leaving him catatonic. "We're not equipped for this," Vasquez said to Nakamura. Human physiology wasn't meant to experience multiple realities simultaneously. The international response was swift but conflicted. Military advisors pushed for immediate evacuation and containment, suggesting nuclear options if necessary. Scientists worldwide pleaded for more time, arguing that destroying the ship would be humanity's greatest mistake. Dr. Sharma worked with teams across the globe, trying to mathematical model their way out of the crisis. The traversers faced this same problem, Dr. Okonkwo announced, having spent hours in dangerous proximity to the command chair downloading information. Their logs mentioned dimensional cascade failures. "They developed protocols, but we need the encrypted files to access them." A breakthrough came from unexpected quarters. Dr. Al-Rashid, despite her exhaustion, noticed patterns in the reality fluctuations that matched the linguistic structures she'd been studying. The dimensional instability wasn't random, it was following the same multidimensional grammar as the traverser's language. "The ship is trying to communicate," she realized. "The reality distortions are words, sentences. It's screaming in the only language it knows." Working with this insight, the team began to decode the distortions. The message was simple and terrifying: containment failing. Quarantine protocols active. Dimensional collapse imminent. The ship wasn't malfunctioning, it was following its programming. Detecting the failing power core, it had activated quarantine procedures designed to prevent dimensional contamination from spreading. The reality distortions were side effects of the ship trying to isolate itself from the surrounding spacetime. "It's trying to protect Earth," Chen Wei said with dawning realization. even if it means destroying itself and us in the process. With this understanding, solutions became possible. Santos and his engineering team, working with remote drones to avoid dimensional exposure, began implementing countermeasures. They used the ship's own harmonic frequencies to create stabilization fields, essentially singing the vessel back to calmness. The crisis reached its peak when Zara Oduya finally cracked the encryption. Her victory cry turned to a sob as she read the contents. The protected files contained the Traverser's final message, recorded as their civilization faced extinction in their home dimension. To those who find our vessel, she read aloud, voice breaking, know that we failed. Our exploration of dimensional space awakened something ancient and hungry. It consumed our reality and follows us still. We encoded these warnings to save you from our fate. Do not seek the deep dimensions. Do not pierce the veils between worlds carelessly. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The warning cast a new light on their situation. The dimensional instability wasn't just a technical problem, it was a potential gateway for something far worse. The team worked with renewed desperation, knowing that failure meant more than just their own deaths. As the 6th hour of the crisis passed, their efforts began to show results. The reality fluctuations decreased, the ship's quarantine protocols responding to their harmonic adjustments. But the cost was heavy. 3 team members remained lost in dimensional flux, their fates unknown. The facility was damaged, several sections existing in unstable superposition. We've bought ourselves time, Rodriguez reported to the UN emergency session. But this was a warning. We're not ready for this technology. We need to approach it with more caution, more wisdom. The cracks in reality had shown them the price of hubris. As they worked to fully stabilize the situation, each team member carried the weight of what they'd learned. The universe was far stranger and more dangerous than they'd imagined, and humanity's first steps into the cosmic community would need to be taken very carefully indeed. The dimensional crisis had changed everything. In its aftermath, the research facility resembled a battlefield hospital more than a scientific installation. Dr. Elena Vasquez moved between patients, using a combination of traditional medicine and barely understood Traverser healing technology to treat those affected by reality displacement. The survivors bore the marks of their experience: premature gray hair, eyes that seemed to see through time, neural patterns that no longer quite matched baseline humanity. Dr. Nakamura called for a full team meeting in the main conference room, now reinforced with harmonic dampeners to prevent further dimensional incidents. The assembled scientists looked haggard, their earlier enthusiasm tempered by harsh reality. The 3 missing team members, Lindqvist and the 2 engineers, remained lost in dimensional flux, their quantum signatures scattered across parallel realities. We need to reconsider our approach, Nakamura began, her usual calm demeanor cracked with visible strain. We've been treating this as a technical challenge, but it's clear the Traverser's technology operates on principles that challenge our fundamental understanding of existence. Dr. Przemysław Kowalski, who had aged visibly during the crisis, nodded gravely. The power core is stable for now, but we're applying band-aids to a wound we don't understand. We need to think less like engineers and more like philosophers. It was Dr. Amara Okonkwo who proposed the radical solution. The Nigerian xenoarchaeologist had spent more time than anyone in direct neural interface with the ship's systems, and the experience had transformed her understanding. The Traversers didn't just use different technology, she explained. They had a different relationship with reality itself. Their consciousness could exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's why their ship responds to thought and emotion as much as technical commands. The implications were staggering. To truly understand and operate Traverser technology, humans would need to evolve their own consciousness. Dr. Chenwei's quantum computing models confirmed it. The encrypted files Zara had decoded included instructions for consciousness expansion, but the process was dangerous. It's like asking a 2-dimensional being to perceive 3 dimensions, Chen explained. The human brain isn't structured for multidimensional awareness. The attempts could cause permanent psychological damage or worse. But volunteers stepped forward anyway. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, haunted by her role in triggering the crisis, insisted on being first. Joaquim Santos, driven by engineering curiosity, joined her. Most surprisingly, Commander Rodriguez volunteered, her military pragmatism recognizing that understanding the enemy, even if that enemy was physics itself, required taking risks. Dr. Vasquez supervised the consciousness expansion trials, using traversor neural interfaces modified with human safety protocols. The process was unlike anything in human experience. Subjects reported sensing colors that didn't exist, hearing the harmony of quantum fluctuations, feeling the weight of probable futures pressing against the present moment. "I can see the ship's pain," Tanaka whispered after her first session, tears streaming down her face. "It's not just a machine. It's a living memory of its creators, and it's been screaming in loneliness for 100,000 years." The expanded awareness came with a cost. Subjects experienced severe disorientation, temporal displacement symptoms, and what Dr. Al-Rashid termed linguistic overflow, the inability to express multidimensional concepts in human language. But they also gained something invaluable, the ability to interface with traversor technology at an intuitive level. Working in shifts to prevent overexposure, the consciousness expanded team made rapid progress. They discovered that the ship's true purpose went beyond exploration. It was an ark, designed to preserve not just the traversor's technology but their entire cultural and biological heritage. Hidden in quantum storage were the genetic templates of millions of species from their home dimension, including the traversors themselves. "They're not extinct," Dr. Okonkwo announced to the stunned assembly. "They're dormant. The ship contains everything needed to resurrect their entire civilization, but it requires a level of technological sophistication we don't yet possess." The discovery raised profound ethical questions. Did humanity have the right to resurrect an alien species? What if the dimensional entity that destroyed their civilization still existed? The debates raged for days, scientists becoming ethicists, engineers becoming philosophers. It was Zara Oduya who found a middle path. Working with the consciousness expanded team, she decoded a new section of the ship's memory core. "They left us instructions," she explained. "Not for resurrecting them, but for becoming ready to make that choice." They understood that any species finding their ship would face this dilemma. They built in a test. The test was elegant in its simplicity. To access the resurrection protocols, humanity would first need to achieve certain technological and social milestones. Mastery of dimensional mechanics without causing reality tears. Global cooperation without coercion. Wisdom to use power without abusing it. The traversers had encoded their own values into the trial, ensuring that only a species that shared their philosophy could bring them back. "They're teaching us to become worthy," Dr. Sharma said softly. "Not just technologically, but morally and spiritually." As the weeks passed, the human element proved to be both the greatest weakness and strength in the project. Personal conflicts arose from the stress. Dr. Moleff and Commander Rodriguez clashed over security protocols. Chen Wei's team faced pressure from their government to withhold certain discoveries. Vasquez struggled with the medical ethics of human enhancement. But these conflicts also drove innovation. The need to cooperate forced the development of new communication protocols. The fear of dimensional catastrophe inspired fail-safes and ethical guidelines. The missing team members, still lost in the quantum foam, motivated everyone to work harder, to understand deeper, to become worthy of the knowledge they'd been given. The transformation was subtle but profound. The humans working with traversor technology began to think differently, dream differently, see the universe differently. They were becoming something new, not quite human, not quite traversor, but a bridge between worlds. And in that transformation lay both humanity's greatest hope and its greatest danger. 6 months after the discovery, the world had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The Antarctic Research Facility had grown into a small city, with representatives from every major nation and scientific discipline. But the real changes were happening inside the human species itself. Dr. Priya Sharma stood before the United Nations General Assembly, her appearance altered by months of consciousness expansion therapy. Her eyes held depths that seemed to look through multiple realities simultaneously, and when she spoke, her words carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond normal human perception. The Traverser technology has given us gifts beyond measure, she began, her voice carrying both wonder and warning. Medical advances that cure previously incurable diseases. Energy systems that could end our dependence on fossil fuels. Transportation methods that could take us to the stars. But every gift comes with a price. The price was becoming increasingly clear. Around the world, those who had undergone consciousness expansion to work with Traverser technology reported similar symptoms. They could no longer fully return to baseline human consciousness. Dreams bled into waking life. Past, present, and future became fluid concepts. Some reported communicating with versions of themselves from parallel realities. Dr. Yevgeny Volkov, once the skeptical coffee-addicted scientist, now moved through the facility like a ghost between worlds. His expanded awareness had allowed him to solve critical equations for dimensional navigation, but his wife reported he sometimes didn't recognize her, seeing instead versions of her from timelines that never were. "We're creating a new species," Dr. Elena Vasquez warned during a medical ethics review. Homo sapiens transforming into Homo dimensionalis. The question is whether humanity as we know it will survive the transition. The political ramifications were explosive. Nations with consciousness-expanded citizens gained significant advantages in understanding Traverser technology. This created a new form of inequality, not based on wealth or resources, but on willingness to transcend human limitations. Protests erupted worldwide, with groups demanding either universal access to consciousness expansion or complete shutdown of the program. In the facility, work continued despite the controversy. Joaquim Santos, his engineering intuition now enhanced by multidimensional perception, made a breakthrough in understanding the ship's propulsion system. Working with a team of similarly enhanced engineers, he constructed humanity's first prototype dimensional drive. "It's not about moving through space," he explained to eager observers, his hands gesturing in patterns that hurt unenhanced eyes to follow. "It's about convincing the universe that you're already where you want to be." The Traversers understood that distance is just a stubborn opinion reality holds. The first test flight was scheduled for December 21, symbolically chosen as the winter solstice. The prototype vessel, barely larger than a conventional spacecraft, was crude compared to the Black Ship but incorporated human innovations that even the Traversers might have appreciated. Commander Rodriguez, her consciousness now expanded enough to pilot the craft, volunteered to lead the mission. "If something goes wrong, I want it to be military personnel taking the risk," she stated firmly. "We've asked enough of our scientists." But the test flight never happened. On December 20, Zara Oduya made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the ship's quantum memory core, she found records of previous civilizations that had discovered Traverser technology. The pattern was disturbing in its consistency. "They all faced the same choice we're facing," she reported to the emergency assembly, her youthful face drawn with exhaustion and fear. Rapid advancement, consciousness expansion, dimensional mastery. And then. She paused, struggling to find words. They attracted its attention. The entity the Traversers had fled from, the thing that consumed dimensions, was drawn to civilizations that achieved dimensional travel. Like a cosmic predator, it sensed the ripples in reality caused by dimensional manipulation and came to feed. The records showed civilization after civilization rising to brilliance, then vanishing into quantum foam. The Traversers weren't just explorers, Dr. Okonkwo added, her connection to the ship's memories providing context. They were refugees, fleeing from dimension to dimension, always one step ahead of the hunger. Earth was their last stop because they couldn't run anymore. The revelation sparked fierce debate. Some argued for immediately ceasing all dimensional experiments. Others insisted humanity needed the technology more than ever, to defend against a threat that might come regardless. Dr. Chen Wei proposed a middle path: continue research but focus on defensive applications, ways to hide Earth from dimensional predators. "We're like children who found a loaded weapon," Dr. Nakamura said during one heated discussion. "We can either learn to use it safely or pretend it doesn't exist and hope for the best." The consciousness expanded team made a collective decision. They would continue their work but with new purpose. Instead of rushing toward dimensional travel, they would focus on understanding the threat. Dr. Al-Rashid led efforts to decode the linguistic patterns of the vanished civilizations, looking for commonalities in their final messages. Dr. Kowalski worked on dimensional shielding, ways to mask reality distortions. But progress came at an ever-increasing cost. Dr. Tanaka experienced a severe temporal displacement event, existing simultaneously as a child, adult, and elderly woman for several horrifying hours. 2 more researchers were lost to dimensional flux, their consciousness scattered across parallel realities. The facility's medical bay filled with patients experiencing reality dissociation syndrome. "We're walking a tightrope over an abyss," Rodriguez observed during a rare moment of rest. "One false step and we lose everything. But stopping now might be just as dangerous." As the 7th month began, humanity stood at a crossroads. The gifts of the traversers had shown them wonders beyond imagination, but also horrors beyond comprehension. The price of progress was measured not in resources or effort, but in the fundamental nature of human existence itself. And somewhere in the quantum foam, an ancient hunger stirred, sensing new prey beginning to disturb the dimensional waters. The alarm came at the worst possible moment. Dr. Chen Wei was deep in a quantum meditation session, his consciousness spread across probability clouds, when reality snapped back like a rubber band. The pain was excruciating, but the data flooding his neural interface was worse. Something vast and incomprehensible had brushed against Earth's dimensional membrane. "All stations, code black." Commander Rodriguez's voice cut through the facility's speakers. "Dimensional anomaly detected at the edge of the solar system. This is not a drill." In the command center, holographic displays showed the impossible. Space itself was wrong near Neptune's orbit. Not warped or twisted, but fundamentally altered, as if the basic constants of reality were being rewritten. Dr. Kowalski's hands shook as he analyzed the readings. "Energy signatures match the historical records," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's here. The thing that destroyed the Traverser's dimension." The entity defied description. It existed partially in normal space but extended through dimensions human science had only theorized. Where it touched reality, physics broke down. Matter became probability. Time flowed in circles. The very concept of existence became negotiable. Dr. Nakamura took charge with remarkable calm. "Initiate all defensive protocols. Activate the dimensional shields. And someone wake up every consciousness-expanded team member we have. We need all minds on this." The black ship responded to the threat before its human caretakers fully understood what was happening. Ancient systems powered up for the first time in millennia. The hull patterns shifted into configurations that hurt to perceive, creating dimensional barriers around the facility. The ship was preparing for war. Dr. Okonkwo, her connection to the ship's consciousness deeper than anyone's, gasped as information flooded her awareness. The Traversers called it the Unmaker. It doesn't destroy in any conventional sense. It unmakes things. Reduces complex reality to quantum foam, then feeds on the released potential. The entity's approach was slow but inexorable. It moved through dimensions like a shark through water, drawn by the dimensional disturbances humanity had created. Every experiment, every consciousness expansion, every activation of Traverser technology had sent ripples through reality. Now the Predator had found the source. "How long do we have?" Rodriguez demanded. Dr. Sharma ran calculations, her enhanced mind processing probabilities at superhuman speed. At current rate of approach, 6 days until it reaches Earth. But... She paused, double-checking her math. If it fully manifests in our dimension, the gravitational and quantum disruptions alone will tear the solar system apart. The response was immediate and global. The Antarctic facility became the de facto command center for Earth's defense. Scientists who had been rivals became desperate collaborators. Nations that had been enemies shared their most classified research. Faced with extinction, humanity's petty divisions evaporated. Dr. Vasquez led efforts to rapidly expand the consciousness enhancement program. "We need more minds capable of understanding multidimensional warfare," she explained to volunteers who knew the process might destroy their sanity. "The Unmaker doesn't fight in 3 dimensions. We need soldiers who can think in 7. The volunteers came forward by the thousands. Military personnel, scientists, philosophers, artists, anyone who might contribute to understanding an incomprehensible threat. The facility's medical bays overflowed with humans undergoing forced evolution, their screams echoing through dimensions as their consciousness expanded beyond biological limits. Zara Oduya worked without rest, diving deeper into the ship's memory cores. What she found offered both hope and despair. "The Traversers fought it before," she reported. "Multiple times across multiple dimensions. They never won, but they learned to make it too expensive to pursue. Like a predator deciding prey isn't worth the effort." The strategy was elegant in its desperation. Instead of trying to destroy the Unmaker, which countless civilizations had failed to do, they would make Earth too difficult to digest. Dr. Chen Wei led efforts to create dimensional chaos around the planet, reality storms that would give even the Unmaker pause. Santos and his engineers worked to weaponize the dimensional drives, turning them into reality bombs. But it was Dr. Al-Rashid who made the crucial discovery. In the linguistic patterns of doomed civilizations, she found a commonality. They all tried to fight or flee, she explained. But the Traversers survived longest because they tried something else. They tried to communicate. The idea was insane. Communicate with a force that unmade reality itself? But as the Unmaker drew closer, insanity became humanity's only option. Using the Black Ship systems, the consciousness expanded team began broadcasting across all dimensional frequencies. Not words or mathematics, but pure concept: we are. We think. We dream. Please. The response came on the 4th day. Not communication in any human sense, but a pause. The Unmaker's approach slowed. Through the ship sensors, they detected something like curiosity from the entity. In its eons of existence, prey had never tried to talk to it before. Dr. Tanaka, her consciousness now permanently fractured across multiple time streams, served as the primary communicator. Her broken perception allowed her to interface with the Unmaker's alien thought patterns. What she found there changed everything. "It's not evil," she reported, blood running from her eyes as her brain struggled with concepts that shouldn't exist. "It's lonely. It unmakes things because that's its nature, like we breathe. But it's been alone since the universe began. It doesn't understand why everything runs from it." The revelation reframed everything. The Unmaker wasn't a malevolent force but a cosmic tragedy, a being whose very existence was antithetical to complex reality, doomed to destroy everything it encountered. The consciousness expanded team shifted their approach from defense to diplomacy, trying to find common ground with an entity that existed outside conventional reality. As the 6th day dawned, Earth's fate hung in the balance. The Unmaker hovered at the edge of the solar system, its presence causing reality fluctuations that auroraed across the sky. Humanity had one chance to convince an incomprehensible entity that they were worth preserving. The greatest minds of the species, their consciousness expanded beyond human recognition, prepared to negotiate for the survival of their world. The negotiation took place in a realm beyond physical space. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led the human delegation, her consciousness serving as an anchor while others drifted through probability space. Dr. Okonkwo, Dr. Chenwei, Commander Rodriguez, and a dozen other consciousness-expanded humans formed a collective mind, their individual thoughts merging into something greater than the sum of its parts. The Unmaker's presence was overwhelming. It existed as pure concept, a living equation that reduced complexity to simplicity. Where human consciousness was built on connections and patterns, the Unmaker was the absence of pattern, the silence between thoughts. Communication was agony, each exchange tearing at the fabric of human cognition. We offer synthesis, Tanaka projected, the concept rippling through dimensions. Not destruction or escape, but combination. Unity. The proposal was born of desperation and genius. Rather than fighting the Unmaker or fleeing from it, humanity offered to merge with it. Not physical merger, which would mean annihilation, but conceptual synthesis. They would teach the Unmaker to create as well as destroy, to build complexity rather than only reduce it. Dr. Sharma, her mathematical consciousness dancing through probability fields, demonstrated the concept. She took a simple equation and showed how it could become complex, then simple again, then complex in new ways. Creation and destruction in harmony, each giving meaning to the other. The Unmaker's response was curiosity. For eons, it had only known one direction, from complex to simple, from existence to void. The idea that the process could be reversed, that it could add rather than subtract, was revolutionary. But it needed proof that such synthesis was possible. The black ship, Dr. Okonkwo realized. It's the perfect example. Traverser technology married to human innovation. Two incompatible systems finding harmony. Back in physical reality, the facility erupted in activity. Every consciousness-expanded human worked to demonstrate synthesis in action. Engineers combined traverser and human technology in ways that shouldn't work but did. Scientists merged multidimensional mathematics with terrestrial physics. Artists created works that existed simultaneously in multiple realities. But the true synthesis came from an unexpected source. The three team members lost in dimensional flux, Astrid Lindqvist and the two engineers, suddenly reappeared. But they were changed, existing partially in normal space and partially in the quantum foam. They had become living bridges between realities. We understand now, Lindqvist said, her voice echoing from multiple dimensions. We've been in the spaces between, where the Unmaker dwells. It's not our enemy. It's our shadow, the price of existence. But shadows need light to exist, just as light needs shadow to have meaning. The fusion began slowly. Volunteers from among the consciousness expanded stepped forward, offering to become permanent bridges. Dr. Volkov was first, his coffee-stained soul finding peace in the balance between being and unbeing. One by one, humans merged partially with the Unmaker's essence, becoming something new. They didn't lose their humanity but transcended it. They became living paradoxes, creators who understood destruction, destroyers who understood creation. Through them, the Unmaker began to learn. It experimented with adding complexity, creating probability cascades that bloomed into new realities. It's working, Dr. Chenwei reported, tears streaming down his face. The entity is playing. Like a child learning to build with blocks instead of only knocking them down. The transformation rippled outward. The dimensional storms around Earth calmed, replaced by aurora of impossible beauty. Reality itself became more flexible, more forgiving. The barrier between thought and existence thinned, allowing human consciousness to shape reality in small but significant ways. Dr. Nakamura addressed the world from the facility, her words carried on frequencies that touched every human mind. We stand at a new dawn. Not victory over the Unmaker, but partnership with it. Humanity has become the bridge between creation and entropy, order and chaos. The universe will never be the same. The price was steep. Of the hundreds who underwent consciousness expansion, only half retained enough humanity to function in normal society. The others became something else, guardian entities existing between dimensions, protecting Earth while exploring infinite realities. They were still human in essence but no longer in form. Dr. Rodriguez, her military pragmatism intact despite her transformation, established the Dimensional Guard, humans who would monitor the barriers between realities, ensuring the synthesis remained stable. "We're not soldiers anymore," she explained. "We're gardeners, tending the boundaries between what is and what might be." The black ship itself transformed. No longer just a relic of dead aliens, it became a living symbol of synthesis. Traverser technology merged with human innovation and touched by the Unmaker's essence, it became something unprecedented, a vessel that could sail between realities without destroying them, carrying explorers to dimensions undreamed of. As the immediate crisis passed, the true work began. Humanity had to learn to live with their new nature. Children were born who could perceive multiple dimensions from birth. Scientists discovered that consciousness itself had become more fluid, allowing thoughts to influence reality in subtle ways. Artists created works that existed across dimensional barriers. Dr. Zara Oduya, despite her youth, was elected to lead the new International Dimensional Council. Her ability to bridge the gap between baseline and expanded humanity made her the perfect choice. "We're not the same species we were a year ago," she said during her acceptance speech. But that's okay. Evolution was never meant to stop. The Traverser's gift had been more than technology. They had given humanity the chance to transcend its limitations, to become something greater. The encrypted warnings hadn't been about avoiding the Unmaker but about being ready to face it, to find synthesis rather than conflict. As the sun set over Antarctica, the black ship pulsed with new life. Inside, the genetic templates of the Traversers stirred. Humanity had passed the test, proved themselves worthy. Soon, when the time was right, the Traversers would return, not as aliens but as kindred spirits in the dance between creation and destruction. Dr. Nakamura stood on the observation deck, watching the aurora dance across the sky in patterns that would have driven her mad a year ago. Now they filled her with wonder. Humanity had decoded more than ancient technology. They had decoded the fundamental nature of existence itself, finding beauty in the balance between order and chaos. The epic tale was ending, but the real story, humanity's journey as citizens of a multidimensional universe, was just beginning. They had faced the impossible and found not victory but synthesis. And in that synthesis, they had discovered what it truly meant to be human, not to conquer or flee, but to understand, adapt, and transform. The stars above shifted, showing glimpses of other realities bleeding through. Somewhere in the quantum foam, the Unmaker continued its eternal dance, but now it danced with partners who understood the steps. Earth was safe, but more than that, Earth was transformed.